welcome to the Retirement Answer Man Show. My name is Roger Whitney. So glad that you are here with me. This is the show dedicated to helping you not just survive retirement, but to rock retirement. And you know the way that you do that, don't you? It's by focusing on the right things. That can be hard. And taking lots of intentional actions to create a great life. And so that's what we're going to talk about each week. Now, this month in the Retirement Answer Man Show, or on the show, we are in a hard at work mode. And so let's go talk about that with the most amazing coworker ever, Nicole Rockstar Mills. So October is what we are calling at the Retirement Answer Man World Headquarters as Hard at Work October. Right, Nicole?
I didn't know we were calling it that until just now, but sure.
Yes, we are, because we are really hard at work. We're hard at work at planning out our shows for all of 2020.
2020.
I already have a huge calendar on my wall. So we're planning out shows for all of 2020. And in the Rock Retirement Club, we got a lot of things going on. We are working on the first module of the Rock Retirement course, which is going to, if I can say this, going to be the most comprehensive course on retirement ever created. I'm just throwing it out there.
Setting the bar high.
I'm just throwing it out. It's not going to be that out of the gate because we're going to iterate because we've gotten so much feedback from listeners and members of the Rock Retirement Club. So we're hard on work on that. And we also, what do we have coming up November 2nd in the Rock Retirement Club? The first annual.
Yeah, I'm like, wait, which thing? I'm trying to think.
November 2nd.
The Rodeo Roundup, yes.
The Retirement Rodeo Roundup. This is our first, it's actually like a little conference where we have, right now, first year, not bad, over 30 people coming in to spend a day to have some fellowship and good conversation, but also get some world-class education on retirement. So that's November 2nd. So we're working on a lot of really important things for the show and for the club. So this is Hard at Work October. So we want to share with you what we think are some of the foundational shows of over the last 5 years or so, or 4.5 years, I guess, right? Right. One quick note on the Rock Retirement Club, by the way, because
this is why I was confused when you mentioned early November.
Why is that?
Because the prices will be going up.
Yes. Starting November 1st, the price for joining the club will go up from $45 to about $50, and the annual price is going up from $399 to $499. And if you are looking at joining the club, if you join before November 1st, you'll lock in your membership rates forever. And we have a lot of great things coming out. And I'll have some more information about that over the month because we're really excited. We have about 260 people in there. Some pretty amazing people. So if you're looking for some people to walk life with and get some world-class education, go check it out at rockretirementclub.com. So what show are we starting with in this Hard at Work October?
So something that you talk about a lot on the podcast is the importance of net worth statements. So I figured that we would go back and pull one of our older episodes that talk about how you put it together and why it's important and all of that great stuff, kind of the basics of the net worth statement.
Yeah, I think initially the show that we chose for this was episode 2. And I'm like, ooh, I don't think I want to play episode 2.
Yeah, you shot me down on that.
So we're going to play an episode where I describe the importance and how do you actually create a net worth statement. And then you're going to listen to Older Retirement Plan Live and hear me help facilitate someone in creating their net worth statement. So let's go listen to that show. According to Benjamin Franklin, your net worth to the world is usually determined by what remains after your bad habits are subtracted from your good ones.
Are you ready to make the most of the only life you have? To make smart money choices focused on achieving what you care about most? Here to help you balance living well today without sacrificing your tomorrow is the Retirement Answer Man, Roger Whitney.
Welcome to step 2 of the Kim and Joe Retirement Plan Live case study. Now, last week we had Kim talk to us about what her and Joe's ideal retirement is. So what we're going to do this week is define what financial resources they have to work towards those goals. Because just because you got goals, you got to have the resources and a framework to go get there. So we're going to look at what kind of income sources they have during retirement, pensions and Social Security and things like that. And then you're going to listen in as she and I build a net worth statement so we have an understanding of what assets they have in order. Now, next week, we're going to talk about the risks to everyone's retirement plan, the major risks that we have to deal with. And then we are going to have the results webinar on March 2nd at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. We need to take a week in between because I'll be traveling, but that's when you're going to be able to see live the entire plan for Kim and Joe and hear along with them whether this ideal retirement is going to work or not. So if you're signed up for 6 Shots Saturday, that's the only way you're going to get access to the webinar. And that is also the only way that you're going to get a copy of their financial resources this coming Saturday. So if you haven't signed up already, go to rogerwhitney.com and enter your first name and email, and that way you can be assured to get all the resources. Now, before we get into the discussion with Kim and Joe, let's talk a little bit about net worth right after this disclaimer. Bum, 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 bum. That's right, it's all important disclaimer. This is for informational purposes only. Don't take this as advice. I'm not here to give you advice because I don't know anything about you. I only give advice to clients that I walk life with every day. I'm accepting clients. You can go to rogerwhitney.com and click on Work with Roger to set up a time for us to talk. But until that time, think of this as helpful hints and education. Before you make any decisions, talk to your legal advisor, your financial advisor, or your tax advisor, because that's just common sense. Now, let's talk about this net worth concept and what exactly a net worth is. So recently I was perusing the internet and I came across this article that had a lot of census data about what the net worth distribution is in the United States of America. So net worth by age. So I thought that was really interesting. I wanted to share some of the results with you of that, if I said that right. Anyway, but before I do that, let's define exactly what a net worth statement is. Now, we've talked about this before, and there's a worksheet in the Retirement Learning Center at rogerwhitney.com where you can build your own net worth statement. But real simply, it is a statement of your financial health on one page. So usually on the left-hand column, you list all of the assets that you have as a family. So that's going to be checking accounts, savings accounts, retirement accounts, your house, property that you own that has value. So you would list those all on the left-hand side, and usually you categorize those between after-tax assets, tax-deferred assets like IRAs, tax-free assets like Roth IRAs and things like that. And then on the right-hand column, you have all of the debts that you owe. Those are anything that you owe money towards. Usually people have a mortgage, they're going to have car payments, maybe credit card payments. And then at the bottom of the page, you add up the value of all of your assets on the left-hand side. And then you add up the value of all your debts on the right-hand side, and then you subtract your debts from your assets, and that gives you your net worth. So netting out liabilities, what's the value of all the stuff that you have? So it's a great gauge on one page of your financial well-being. When I work with clients, I always work off of a net worth statement. So we always build a net worth statement and we use that as a dashboard. And I'll talk about that here in a second. So this is a really critical document to know how you're doing. One of the questions that clients will ask me, well, Roger, how is my net worth relative to pick your poison? Other people my age, ones you've seen before. Everybody wants to know how they compare. So when I was looking at this article, it broke down the average net worth by age. So it put it into categories and it gave out, this is all from the Census Bureau. They gave out the 30th percentile, the 50th percentile, so right smack in the middle, and then the 70th percentile. So as an example, if we look at the bulk of this, the listeners of this show, they're between, say, 55 and 64. It's probably a little bit younger than that, but we'll call that the bulk. So according to the U.S. Census Bureau, if you're between the ages of 55 and 64, the median or the 50th percentile net worth is $144,000. The 70th percentile is $333,000. So that's taking all of the assets someone owns minus all of the liabilities that they have. And then obviously it goes down as you get younger, and it really doesn't go up as you get older. So the over 65 crowd, the 50th percentile was 171,000 and some change. And the 70th percentile was 334,000, really not that much above the other. So this is the kind of net worth that the bulk of Americans are going into retirement with. These are the financial resources outside of pensions and Social Security that is supposedly going to have to support them in their old age. My guess is when you compare yourself to these numbers, I know from the survey that I do with you guys and gals, you're well above this. So don't beat yourself up too much in terms of where you think you are. We all never feel like we're as far along as we need to be. Obviously, the more robust your net worth statement is in terms of the value of assets, the more resources you have to start to execute on your ideal retirement. So let's talk a little bit more about a net worth statement. How do you practically use that to make better financial decisions and to determine whether you can retire sooner, what kind of lifestyle you might have, will you run out of money or not? I use a net worth statement with clients in one of three ways typically. Number one is I use it as a personal measuring stick because a net worth, if you capture it on a particular day, we just updated lots of net worths here at the end of the year. That's a snapshot in time of the wealth that you've accumulated through all your work and efforts and savings and everything else. And if you track it systematically over a long period of time, it serves as your personal measuring stick. I always use the same example. So if you heard this before, excuse me. I had a gentleman who I've worked with actually for 16, 17 years now. And when we started working together a long time ago, just got out of professional school, he and his wife had a negative net worth. So what does that mean? That means that their debts, all the money that they owed, was a larger value than all the assets that they had because of grad school and loans and all those other types of things. That's pretty depressing when you see, wow, man, I'm a negative net worth. See some companies like that sometimes. So over time, as we started working together, we would track his and her net worth statement systematically. At the time, I think we were doing every 6 months. And we would set bogeys on chipping away at the debt, building up some cash reserve. And now here we are 16, 17 years later, and their net worth is in the multiple of millions. Now, yes, they had great income, but they really made a lot of progress. When you chart that net worth statement out like we do, you really make a lot of progress. And here's how that can be your personal measuring stick. Because when the world is going crazy, whether if Trump wins, it's going to implode. Now the market's getting great again and it's about to implode and I'm never saving enough. I should be doing more. We can't take that vacation because I feel bad about not saving more. All those kind of things that swirl around in our head that are outward looking that make us feel like we're not doing a good job. And then we just beat up on ourselves. When you look at your net worth statement, it can bring you back to the progress that you made through decisions that you made and actions that you took over very long periods of time. Now, this particular gentleman and his wife, they are a little bit nervous Nellies about these types of things. So they would have these conversations where they always felt that like they weren't doing enough, or they wanted to add that addition to the house, but they probably felt like they should save, and they were guilty for all the pleasures that they allowed themselves. And I would always bring them back to their net worth statement to show them the progress. They're like, hey, you guys aren't doing that bad. Look at all this progress that you've made. Don't worry about keeping up with the Joneses. And two, let's go to the net worth to decide whether you can execute on that addition to the house. So that's the second way I like to use a net worth statement, is as a financial dashboard. Because when you have a decision to make of, can I afford this addition to the house? Should I pay down debt? What do I do with this bonus? What do I do because my income just got disrupted? Your net worth statement is the key document you want to go to look at the entire situation. And I use checklists when I go through reviewing a net worth statement to see how to best make the decision based on your entire financial situation. So that's the second way you want to use a net worth statement, or that I use it, is that it's a great financial dashboard that you continually go to when you have bigger decisions to make. Now, the last reason I love the net worth statement, not that there aren't more, but we got to talk to Kim about their net worth statement, is it's a great document that will cut through the best intentions. Ultimately, a net worth reflects a lot about what you value. And regardless of what your best intentions are, what you say they are, it will prove out on your net worth statement or not. If you say you hate debt and you love to save and you're all about the future, and I look at your net worth statement and there's debt and there's not a lot of savings, well, I ain't going to believe you. You can say it all day long. If you say that you're about having fun today and doing things with your family, but I never see you doing things, all I see you is accumulating assets because that's how you're hardwired, I know that there's not a match there. So I love the net worth statement because everybody, you hear stories, you're at a party, oh yeah, this is what I did, blah, blah. You look at the net worth statement, it cuts through all the BS and it shows you the consequence or the result of all your actions, which is a great thing to do. So if you don't have a net worth, go to rogerwhitney.com, go to the Learning Center and download Build Your Net Worth, and it will be real simple to build, and you can track it on a simple spreadsheet every 6 months, and it will help you get more intentional about your decisions. Enough about that. Let's go talk about Kim's net worth in the practical planning section. Okay, so now we're going to talk with Kim and outline their financial resources they have to start working towards this ideal retirement. And we have a good meandering conversation that addresses a lot of issues. Now, one thing I noticed in our discussion was that she had ideas like rental houses or a mother-in-law suite, and she talked about these potential investments to go on her net worth as rattling around in her head, but never have done anything with them. And that's one thing a net worth will do, is it'll help formulate decision-making so you don't just let great ideas rattle around forever. So let's get to our conversation with Kim. All right. Kim, welcome back to the show.
Thank you.
Now, did you listen to yourself on the podcast yet?
I haven't.
Okay. It's a really weird experience, so don't judge yourself too hard because you sound great. I'm just going to tell you do. Well, last week we created or dreamed up is it dreamed or dreamt? I don't know. But we did that for your ideal retirement. And now we got to figure out how we're going to pay for it.
Right.
So we got to figure out what resources you have to cover all those crazy things that you guys thought of. So the first step is
food and things.
Yeah, food and healthcare, all that crazy stuff.
Right.
And so I think start with obviously Social Security. Right. So both of you are fully insured, I'm guessing, because you had a successful career.
Right.
So we're going to have those monies come in. Now, I don't know if you have accurate estimates for Social Security. You can get those online.
Yeah, I started doing that a few years ago just to get a sense, because my job career has been a little spotty. And as much as they can estimate, they're only estimating based on what you last made. So I kind of went in there like a nerd and figured it out.
Okay. So do you have those numbers?
I do, if I can find them here. Basically, for me, I was looking at full retirement versus 62, and I was looking at, it's like $1,580 a month.
$1,580 a month. And then, yeah, full retirement, it would be the good number to use for the start anyway. Right. And then do you happen to know Joe's?
Yes, as best I can guess, it looks like his would be, you want full retirement?
Yes.
Okay. Looks like 2820.
2820. Okay. Mm-hmm. For initial purposes, we're going to put those in there at full retirement. And then on the webinar, probably we will experiment with, do we delay? Do we take early? Do we use any of the strategies that are still available? But for now, as a baseline, we'll use the full retirement number. And one nice thing about Social Security that people forget about is it adjusts for inflation, which it has been doing since 1975. And I can tell you from doing hundreds of these, it makes a huge difference.
Yeah, because the guess I have right now probably won't be what we actually would start at because it would have inflated by then to a different number, correct?
Well, once you start it, it will inflate every year based on CPI or however the Social Security Administration does it. So
yeah, but what I mean is that number I'm using now, let's say if we don't start it for another 10 years, then you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know the answer to that off the top of my head. I've never been asked that before. I thought of it. I think the numbers that they're giving you are probably pretty accurate to what it would be.
Okay.
And now those may change year from year based on how they decide to calculate things.
Right.
But once you start receiving it, at least on average since 1975, they've increased roughly 3.5% a year, which is pretty good, right? Now, lately, we've had some years where it was 0% increase. So that didn't feel so good. And also, usually what will happen is when we have Medicare payments that you're making for Part B and others, they'll usually have those deducted from your Social Security before you even see it. So sometimes even if you get an increase, if that increase is higher, it doesn't really feel like you got anything.
Yeah.
But that's still an important benefit. So we got that. Now, does either of you have any pensions that will play a part in this?
No, neither of us have ever worked for a company that has a pension.
Okay. And so that makes it difficult, right? So you're part of that baby boomer generation that didn't have any pensions. So when he retires, Joe, and now that you're footloose and fancy free as empty nesters, would retirement be retirement for him? And do you plan to continue as you are? Or what's this new role going to be? Are you guys going to earn any money, you think, between now and whenever?
Well, some of that depends on how this plan plays out, how does it look? But, right now I think is the first time I just sort of separated from a little part-time job I had literally last week. And so I'm kind of finding myself trying to figure out what is the next step. I'm willing to, especially if the plan needs it, to, look at things that I could do definitely to shore up extra savings. And then of course, you want to stay engaged mentally and be contributing, but there's so many different ways that you can contribute in the world that don't involve making money. But, so I am open to whatever is best for our project here. So
what do you think Joe would say?
He would probably leave tomorrow.
He said that. I remember that. But you think he would end up doing something, or you think he would totally just dig it?
I think he thought at some point that he would just stop. And I think I've read a couple of things, little articles, and it's kind of like you need to think about not just leaving something that is maybe stressful and painful, even if you like your job, but to retire to something is more important because it gives you that purpose to go to. Otherwise, I think it's easy to just let the days go by and then you die. And so I think he has now said that he would probably want to work somewhere, and it would be great if he didn't have to worry about what it paid. Okay.
You're right. You're exactly right. Is most people, in my experience, when they talk about retirement, they talk more about what they're running away from. Right. It's like, you just want to stop the pain of, career or corporate world. And then they get there and they're like, oh no, I got to figure out what I want to do. And they think it's going to be a panacea, but it's not a lot of times if you don't plan for it. For our purposes, initially, we won't put in part-time work, if that makes sense to you. But that definitely would be one of the levers to pull. And I guess my only counsel to you would be think about it. And you're in a little bit different situation because your volunteering has ebbed down. Is you guys are pretty young. I mean, if he's able to retire at 58, which is the ideal, I mean, you're going to have social, you're going to have intellectual engagement and social engagement that you're going to want. And that's a long period of not working and not having purpose, from 58 to 90 years old. So I would think about those things because it could be just, a lot of times it's just work, but I want to leave the corporate race and just work on my own terms. And a lot of people make a lot more money or have a blast because they still have the freedom and they have some cash coming in. So I would think about that. So keep that in the back of your mind, but we won't put it in there for now.
Okay.
Okay. Now let's build a net worth statement. So why don't we start with just, cash reserve account, the normal cash accounts.
Yeah, okay. So truly cash, not anything invested
Correct.
at all. Well, obviously that would be cash. See, because we have a little bit of cash in the health savings account, but just in the bank, I think there's about 48,000.
Okay. Is that about normal?
It's actually lower, but that's probably about as low as I would be comfortable with. I think we want to maybe even shore it up a little bit, just that whole 6 months savings type thing.
Okay. And it's hard to know on the cash because you want it to be productive, but you don't want to have it too low either, right? It's always a moving target.
It's funny how you get to a certain age and you've learned some things and you look back and you think how stupid you were. Because at one point his private company had gone public. So then somehow he got money out of it. And we stuck it in the bank. Literally stuck it in the bank for like 10 years. And it didn't, we earned some. It was better. The rates were better back then. But I look back on that and I think, oh gosh, if we could have, picked up some rental property or, it's just that woulda, coulda, shoulda. And you can't look back, but I do every once in a while just kind of kick myself about that.
Yeah. I have those too. I understand that. And it's easy because you just throw it in there and you get caught. It's one of those you mean to do something, but you don't. So, okay, so you have $48,000 in cash. Now, do you have taxable investments?
Yes. We each had some stock through our companies, and we since got rid of his, and now it's in, let's see what we have for taxable.
And let's just put, the totals. It's not, we don't have to get into the details of what's owned.
Okay, so sorry, I do have to add these together. But anyway, we have this one taxable joint account, which is like $84,000.
Okay.
And then I have a separate one that's about $32,000.
$32,000. Okay. And now, are you guys adding to those?
Not really, other than, like I said, just moving some things around. But no,
Okay.
Those have not really gotten any attention just because we've been spending time putting money into the 401k and the health savings.
Okay. So we have taxable liquid investments of roughly $110,000, $106,000, whatever it works out to be, $16,000. So do you have any investments that are taxable outside of, like stocks and bonds? Yeah, you mentioned rental houses. Do you own any rental houses?
No, we don't.
She says sadly.
Well, I know there's actually pros and cons to all of that. So
Yeah. We just actually worked with a client to help them buy their first rental house, which was sort of fun. I think especially because we want to move to like a college town, that would, I'm sure, again, you have to make sure you're getting good tenants, but at the same time, I think the turnover the rentability of it is probably pretty good. But, the housing prices have gone up. So I just don't know what I'm doing. So sometimes when I don't know what I'm doing, I don't do anything. That's not a bad strategy sometimes.
Yeah.
So what is the value of your home? Just the value, roughly.
We've been told probably around $350,000.
Okay. $350,000. And then we had in the plan to buy a new home at some point. So I'm assuming you would sell this house.
Yes.
Okay. And then let's talk about tax deferred accounts. So rather than say 401ks and IRAs and break them all down, unless you want to, and if that's easier for you, I want to get to what you have in tax deferred assets for each of you.
I actually have it broken down that way.
Okay.
Totaled up that way. So regardless of what it's in, it's the taxable status.
Okay.
So tax deferred is like 1.23.
Okay. 1.23. And that's combined between your IRAs, his IRAs, and 401ks and everything else.
Yeah. Some of his 401k is Roth and some of it's not. So I try to keep that separate to get a sense of
that's a good idea.
It's going to have to come out later.
That's a good idea. So what is being contributed to his 401k pre-tax?
Nothing right now.
So no match from the company.
Oh, yes. Sorry. Okay. Pre-tax, nothing. Roth, the full amount, $24,000.
Okay. So
does that make sense? I don't think of it as pre-tax because it's a 401k, but in a Roth.
So he's doing roughly $24,000 a year contribution into the Roth 401k?
The limit he can contribute.
Okay.
And it goes, I'm thinking actually of just kind of doing some looking into it, whether that's really wise. Maybe we go ahead and fund the pre-tax and then take the tax savings and put it in a Roth. I don't know. We've got an awful lot in tax deferred, but that's something that's rolling around right now in my head.
Yeah. The hard part is you may not qualify to make Roth contributions based on the income limits.
Well, we do right now.
Okay. Well, you
based
can do,
on what I know the limits to be.
Okay. We can talk about that as a strategy. So there is a company match?
Yes.
Okay. So what does the company match?
The company matches like 6% up to 50%. It works out to be about $3,800 a year.
Okay. And that always goes in pre-tax. So
Yes.
So 100% up to 6% works out to about $3,600 a year. Okay.
Right.
And then now Roth accounts. So can you break down for me on his 401k how much is in taxable or pre-tax and how much is Roth?
Yeah, and these numbers I've given you for the tax deferred, that includes all of that. Like, okay. I mean, meaning the 401k less the Roth. So the number I gave you for tax deferred. So tax deferred is made up of 401k less the Roth, his rollover IRA, and my rollover IRA.
Okay.
So that's what that 1.23 is made up of.
So what is the Roth balance of his 401k?
149.
149. Okay. And then you mentioned an HSA.
Right.
Okay. So what do you have in the HSA?
That one is $16,500.
16,500. Are you contributing to that?
Yes. We currently contribute the full amount that he can contribute, which is, I think, $6,750.
Okay. Okay.
And next year, I think he can start contributing another $1,000 because he'll be 55 next year.
Okay. And what is your strategy with the HSA? Do you guys use that?
No, we actually don't. And, I kind of keep that in the back of our heads in case something big were to come up. But really, it's such a great investment opportunity in terms of how it's, can grow and it's not taxed. I guess at some point we may want to look at it because once we hit 65, I think there's something about it that changes that may make us want to look at it a little differently. I can't remember what it was about when you turn 65. But.
Yeah, we'll have to do a show on that because we have a number of people that they contribute to it and they think of it as their healthcare slush fund. And even when they have expenses, they don't tap it because they think of that as sort of the healthcare fund of the future.
Yeah, that might be a good way to look at it, especially if we talk about retiring early.
Yeah.
And have to tap into that. So,
okay.
And then we have separate Roths. Each of us have a separate Roth, but those are not like super.
So how much are underneath each of those?
They each have about 12,000 in them.
Okay. And you're not contributing to yours?
I don't know. I was doing taxes. Was it last year or the year before? And I I did a regular IRA just because the tax bill just kind of made me choke a little, which, I wasn't really thinking. I would like to try to find some money to throw more into the Roth. I think the Roth, if somebody said, what would you change? I would really change how much we have in tax deferred versus Roth.
Okay. Well, I mean, it's amazing how, when the Roth wasn't available, but now that tax deferral is, now that it is, all that tax deferral accounts, you look at it and you could almost put a haircut of 30% on it if you were to take it all out for taxes, right? It's going to be income at some point.
Exactly. I mean, I think at this point, based on what I'm looking at, it looks like we'd probably be about in the same tax bracket. I don't know. Because again, I have to tell you a little side story. I was looking for a CPA who basically they promoted that they do a lot of long-term tax planning. And I was concerned like what the required minimum distributions were going to do to all that. And, spent hours with them and they put all this stuff into this fancy software thing. And that after, 6-7 hours of having been with them, their recommendation, instead of saying, here's where your tax situation is, keep in mind, these were sort of some side people that they handed me over to that were, I think, financial planners, even though I said I really wasn't looking for that right now. And whole life insurance is what they recommended to their 58-year-old client, is to take a third of what we have in our investments, which I don't know, maybe it's a good idea, but it sure didn't seem to answer my question. And it certainly seemed like a bill that we would gonna have to make sure that we continue to pay until we died.
It sounded like a come in for the tax planning so we can sell you something else. And that's,
yeah, I had to ask for the CPA that actually I initially spoke to on the phone. I had to ask to meet her because I had not yet met her by the third meeting. I still hadn't laid eyes on her.
and that's really difficult because that type of situation to me really is frustrating because from your end, you have an issue, you're looking for help on something, and you go and you think you're being prudent and you don't even realize that you're just being led down a sales path. And a lot of people wouldn't even realize it. They would just think, oh, well, they must know what they're doing, and then just do it. And when really you're just looking for advice, and it just ends up being a way to get sold something. And that's
well, and I didn't spend any money, like none of this cost anything except for the fact that I handed them every financial document I had. And then I blocked out our Social Security numbers at one point, and they said, oh, well, we need to have that because that's how we do your taxes. And I was like, well, you're not doing my taxes yet. I'm trying to figure out whether this is a good fit, but I did it. And now it's like, that's what bothers me.
Yeah.
They have all of this information on us.
Yeah. It's probably, like maybe a good rule of thumb is if you're not paying for a service, then they're probably going to try to sell you something. Right.
Well, the deal was that I was going to use them for taxes, but they said, oh, well, we have this fancy software. We want to show it to you. And I thought it had something to do with figuring out our taxes.
Right. Okay.
And it took me a while. And I explained it at the end to these financial planner guys. I said, I don't know if you know how this was sold to me, because they were sort of brought in as a kind of a side business that this CPA wanted to start doing. And I said, I need to tell you how this was presented to me. And this is why I'm rather upset right now. And you think you're just doing something that I asked for. And I'm telling you, this is nothing to do with what I asked for.
Yeah. Okay.
So I didn't mean to get off on the side, but that is another reason I'm actually doing this webinar, is because I feel like, not that it has anything to do with taxes, but that I might get a little bit more information that will help me down the road.
Yeah. I'm not going to sell you anything, so don't worry.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
So one thing, looking at your balance sheet, and you have taxable investments, which is good. But one thing I'm just going to point out to think about is with where you're at, let's say that he is able to retire at 58 or whether it's even 62. You have to think about when you're managing a balance sheet, where are you going to draw money from, right? You have a lot in tax deferred, and then you have the Roth, which is smart. If you don't have a lot of taxable investments and you decide that you want to retire early, you're going to have to get the money from somewhere. And if it's not work, what I've seen is a lot of people end up, well, I'm just going to tap my 401k and my tax deferred assets, which means that's going to change their tax situation. And it's going to mean if they need $100,000 to live on, they're going to have to take $100,000 grossed up for whatever taxes they're going to have to pay because that's considered taxable income. So if you're thinking about retiring early, in your 50s, it would be good to start building up taxable assets, because that's going to be your pot of money that you're going to be able to use before Social Security kicks in. And it's going to allow tax deferred to be tax deferred a lot longer. So diversifying that balance sheet is important. And something you got to think about doing early. That's just one thing I would think about.
Okay.
And you and I will clean that up when we create your real plan, not this case study plan. Not that this isn't your real plan, but when we can talk more, openly, since we're hiding your identity and all those other crazy things. Now, let's talk about other assets. So are there any deferred comp plans, stock plans, things like that Joe has access to or is a part of?
No, there were some things in the past, but those have not been available for probably 5 years.
Okay.
We had RSUs and then they vested, and then we've now even completely gotten out of that. Okay.
Well, let's talk about possible future inflows. Do either of you expect an inheritance of some type? Okay. Okay.
I guess humor.
Okay. We answered that one then. Okay.
Right.
No liquidity events in the future that we can think of.
No, we're pretty cut and dried.
Okay. That's good. That's good. Now, what about on the debt side of things? What do you have in terms of debt?
We do have a mortgage. It has $113,000 on it at 3%.
Okay.
And it's 15-year.
And it's a 15-year. So you have that. And then on this house, what we'll do within the plan, at least for the initial, is we're going to make an assumption. So we're talking about when Joe retires. So let's say he could retire today, like what the goal was. When would you sell the house?
Oh, well, if he retired today, we'd sell the house tomorrow.
Okay.
No, honestly, probably after the summer, my son decided he wants to work at the restaurant down the street and continue to do that through next summer. So we'd probably make it a little easier on him. I mean, honestly, a lot of it is there's just not that many houses for sale lately. So,
yeah.
And I'm kind of picky about the house that may be my last real house to live in.
Okay. Okay. So it would be with, say, a year after. So if I said, yeah, we're going to sell the house a year after Joe retires, whenever that is, that would be reasonable.
Right.
Okay. And then I'll put a small factor of growth on it, and I'll figure out the net numbers that the house would sell for. One thing to think about there, and you and I are looking at each other, although they can't see that on the podcast, your kitchen looks gorgeous. So
that's where some of that 100,000 I had sitting in the bank went. Although I did some of it myself.
Did you? Yeah, we're in the middle of new countertops. We have the countertops in. I'm waiting for the backsplash. My wife's, that's what we're doing right now.
Right.
But one thing I would think about while he's still working is, and if you're serious about we're selling this house, say within the next year or two, it might not be a bad idea to meet with a good realtor to say, what could we do to maximize the value? Because this will give you some runway to do it while he's still working.
Yeah, that is really good advice. And we actually did that because of the fact that we thought that he would have an opportunity to telecommute and work from home. And then because we were going to sell the house last December, or maybe about now. And so I did find a realtor that I actually think is really good. And she did come down. That's why I have the estimate of what I think the house is worth besides what's going on in the neighborhood, when they sell. So she did give me some ideas. And that is kind of one of the reasons I'm hesitant to jump into a job, is because there's a fair amount of little things to tackle that I can do myself because I know how to tile and paint for sure. So I'm going to be working on that. My fear is then it's going to get pushed so far out in the future that we'll end up, it'll look outdated, but whatever. You can't worry about that. So.
Yeah. And it'll be interesting as you go through this, because selling the house means you have to find something new. And let's say you find a place, a college town, and you buy a house. You've never lived there before. Maybe it's the wrong college town. So how do you think you would manage that so you don't get yourself in a situation where another, a year or two down the road, it's like, oh, we need to move again?
I think really what would probably more happen is it'd be less about the wrong town and more about the wrong house or the wrong neighborhood or wow, we didn't, we thought we wanted a house with a yard and all that, and we really want a condo where somebody else does the yard, or you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I haven't really thought about that. We do visit there a fair amount. So we feel like we have a sense of what the town is on a lot of levels, on an entertainment level, but also how the town functions as a town. And so we think it probably isn't a bad idea. I'm not really sure. I haven't really thought about that. So,
So one thing to think about, so let's say he's able to retire. Maybe it's you go rent something for 3 or 4 months or 6 months, and you feel different neighborhoods, and so you can get integrated with the vibe of each neighborhood. That way you can still pivot if one doesn't feel right.
I have thought of that. And then, we can always, in fact, we're probably going to do it again, is rent a house, for like a weekend or a long weekend or a week where we can, if there's activities that are going on up there, there's a big jazz festival that they have. And so I've invited my sister to come down from Missouri, and so we'll probably rent a house. So that'll be another way to sort of immerse ourselves a little bit. I think will be a good test case that we can do.
Very smart. Smart lady. Okay. Anything else on the income side during retirement or asset side from a net worth standpoint that I didn't address that you think I should have?
One thing that we had thought about, and I don't know if this is what you're speaking of, but if some of the houses that are in this area, this is sort of a post-retirement thing, that are in the area that we're looking at have either little, like mother-in-law suites, or in some cases, they're sort of like on the other side of the garage where you could rent it out to a student, or you could do like an Airbnb, which would be kind of nice to meet people. So there's all these little things that rattle around. And again, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't do anything. But those are things that I think would be definitely a plus that I would tell the realtor that we want to find something like that. So, but that could be an income producing thing as well.
I think that's a great idea. If you have the spirit for it, I think that's a great idea because, and then you can pick the right tenant, right? Because there's always, especially in a college town, there's always going to be, you have the college kids that are, the crazy ones, but you have great kids that just are looking for a quiet place to chill, and then you get to meet new people. Plus the Airbnb end of it, if you have the spirit for that, I think that's a great idea.
Yeah. I don't know if I have the spirit for those things, but if it were right now, I have friends who have kids going to one or both colleges in the area, and it is just, they're great kids, and I wish I had a place right now for them to live.
Yeah. Okay. So I think that is a good idea, which could bring in some income and just help offset things. That's thinking a little bit outside the box, which is good.
Yeah. But outside of, us having jobs, I really don't know of other income producing things. Again, I'm not against rental income. I think maybe that's more than we want to bite off, unless it was like literally at our property where we know how the roof is and we don't have to, you know what I mean? It's kind of under that same umbrella.
Okay. So what we've accomplished so far is we set some lifestyle goals, which is what we did last time. Mm-hmm. And now we know we made some swags, I guess. It used to be WAGs, wildly awesome guess. And everybody's telling me it's a sophisticated, wildly awesome guess, which is a swag. But, I guess it's changed. So we set some swags on what that would cost over your guys' lifetime, and we increased the longevity because of some family history. And then now we just defined what resources we have to fill the pie. And we're still staying in an ideal state because we're only going to count Social Security. We're going to assume you guys aren't going to work. And then now we just built a net worth statement. So what I will do is I'll prepare the net worth statement and get you a copy and then share it for everybody that's following along. And then next time, what we'll talk about is what kind of risks do we have to think about? So obviously we'll talk about market returns and, what markets can do, but also long-term care and someone dying early. So that's going to be a really fun conversation, right? All that scary stuff the next time we talk. Does that sound good?
That sounds great.
Awesome.
On your marks, get set.
Welcome to the Smart Sprint segment, where each week we set a 7-day goal to take a little baby step towards living a better future. Now, over the last few weeks, we've been working on building the ICE plan, the in case of emergency plan. Last week, I had you organize your digital life and make sure all those passwords were taken care of. I think it was Frank had a great idea of using something like LastPass or 1Password, which is the one I use. I think that's a great idea because you don't want this paper sitting all around. This week, what I'd like you to do, if you've gotten the worksheet or if you have one of your own, I would like you to identify the location of important documents and have it documented so everything can be communicated to the people that need to know. On that worksheet that I have, and I'll include another link into it in 6-Shot Saturday, it's going to have things like where the wills are, the powers of attorney, healthcare proxies, insurance cards, insurance policies, income tax returns, and on and on and on. All these documents that you never need until you need them. And when you need them, you really need them. So in the next 7 days, start locating and organizing where these documents are. So if life happens, your loved ones will know to go get these things so they're not scrambling while they're stressed out, worried about you. So that's your assignment for the next 7 days. Hey, welcome to the Happy Lab, where we noodle on, well, how to live a little bit happier of a life. So lately, I've been a little stressed out. I had this head cold thing I told you about last week, and our dog, Sherlock, my boy, my Great Dane, about 2-year-old Great Dane, had to have surgery the other day. And so I was a little stressed out about things. Wasn't feeling good. I was stressed out about my dog. And so I was a little short. And I realized driving home from work today, you know who I took out my stress on? Yeah, you got it. My spouse. I took it out on my wife. Not really knowing that I was doing it, but sort of knowing I was doing it. And it's important that we think about this because they're stressed out too. And other people that we love are stressed out too. And it's important that we recognize and at least catch ourselves so we can correct, so we don't treat the people we love the worst. And I bet that's going to make us more happy or happier. Is that the way you say it? Either way, you get the point. Hey, I want to thank you for joining me on the Retirement Answer Man show. My name is Roger Whitney, and until next week, I'm the Retirement Answer Man.
We appreciate you joining us today for this episode of Retirement Answer Man. Be sure to visit rogerwhitney.com/answers to access the Retirement Answer Library with over 30 checklists to help you make the most of the only life you have. Remember, you have more power than you realize to create an amazing life starting today with Retirement Answer Man. The opinions voiced in this material are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. All performance referenced is historical and no guarantee of future results. All indices are unmanaged and may not be invested into directly. Have a wonderful day.